The topic is angina pectoris. Angina pectoris is a clinical syndrome usually characterized by episodes of pain and pressure in the anterior chest area. The cause is usually insufficient coronary blood flow, which may result in a decreased oxygen supply to meet an increased myocardial demand of oxygen in response to physical exertion or emotional stress. There are different types of angina pectoris. First is stable angina. It is predictable and consistent pain occurs on the exertion and relieved by the rest. Second is unstable angina or pre-infarction, or it is also known as crescendo angina. Here the symptoms occur more frequently and they stay for longer than stable angina. Third is intractable or refractory angina. Here the severe chest pain occurs. Fourth is variant angina or Prinzmetal angina, where the pain occurs at the rest with reversible ST segment elevation. This is caused by coronary artery vasospasm. And the last is silent ischemia. The objective evidence of ischemia occurs, but it reports no symptoms. There are various causes of angina pectoris. First is physical exertion. That may be due to increased myocardial oxygen demand. Next is exposure to cold, which may cause elevation of blood pressure and increase in oxygen demand. Other reasons can be stress or any emotion-provoking situation, or atherosclerosis, the family history of atherosclerosis, systemic hypertension, diabetes mellitus, cigarette smoking, hypercholesterolemia, and obesity. Angina pectoris has many clinical manifestations. It may produce pain that may vary in severity from feeling of indigestion to choking in retrosternal area, which may radiate to neck, jaw, shoulders, inner aspects of upper arms, and the feeling of weakness or numbness in the arms, wrist, and the hands may occur. There can also be shortness of breath, pallor can accompany, as well as dizziness or lightheadedness, and along with nausea and vomiting. The pathophysiology of angina pectoris is related to or associated to the myocardial ischemia, which results from maybe a reduction in the coronary blood flow, which is caused by fixed or dynamic epicardial artery stenosis, or it can be due to abnormal constriction or deficient relaxation of coronary artery, or it can be due to reduced oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. There are various diagnostic procedures available to diagnose angina pectoris. This is often made by evaluating the clinical manifestations of ischemia and the patient's history. These tests are ECG, that is a 12-lead ECG, which may show ST segment depression and ST segment elevation in case of Prinzmetal angina. Next is C-reactive protein. This is a marker for inflammation of vascular endothelium, which is caused by coronary artery disease. Next is homocysteine level. An elevated blood level of homocysteine, an amino acid proposed as an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Now coming to the classification of drugs, of anti-anginal drugs. First is nitrates. They are the first and foremost drugs which are used to manage angina pectoris. They can be short-acting nitrates like glyceryl trinitrate, nitroglycerin, or long-acting nitrates, that is isosorbide dinitrate, when taken by sublingual route, by taking apart from sublingual route, isosorbide mononitrate. Next is beta blockers like propranolol, metoprolol, atenolol, and others. Third category of drug is calcium channel blockers, which are further classified as phenylalkylamine, verapamil, benzodiazepines, diltiazem, and dihydropyridines, which involves nifedipine, amlodipine, etc. Fourth category of drug is potassium channel openers, example is nicorandil. And the fifth is miscellaneous or other category of the drug, or the newer category of the drug. The objective of all these drugs is to decrease oxygen demand of myocardium and to increase oxygen supply. It can be either to decrease the demand or increase the supply, or both. So starting with the first category, nitroglycerin. Nitroglycerin improves the blood flow by relaxing and dilating veins and arteries. The side effects include headache, lightheadedness, flushing, and increase in the heart rate. So this is a cardiac cell. Here nitrodilators, that is the nitrates, enters into the cardiac cell. It is converted into nitric oxide. This nitric oxide causes GTP to convert into GMP. Now this cyclic guanylyl monophosphate acts by two mechanisms. One is they inhibit the conversion, or they inhibit the phosphorylation of myosin light chain kinase. Here phosphorylated myosin light chain kinase is responsible for phosphorylation of myosin and hence activating myosin to combine with actin and cause contraction. Whereas here we are inhibiting the phosphorylation of myosin light chain kinase. Hence there is no phosphorylation of MLCK. Therefore there is no phosphorylation and activation of myosin, hence no contraction will occur. Another mechanism by which nitrodilators act is this cyclic guanylyl monophosphate converted from GTP with the help of nitric oxide will also inhibit the calcium channels. This inhibition of calcium channels will not allow the influx of calcium into the cardiac cell. Hence, there is no influx of calcium. Therefore, there is no activation of myosin and hence there is no contraction. Hence, we can say that nitrodilators act by two mechanisms. They first of all, they convert GTP into cyclic GMP, and this cyclic GMP, they act by two mechanisms. First is inhibiting the phosphorylation of myosin light chain kinase, and another is inhibition of calcium channels. By both these mechanisms, they will inhibit the contraction of the cardiac cell. Hence, the requirement of oxygen will be reduced here. These are the drugs, their brand names along with their dose and routes and duration of action, falling under the category of organic nitrates. Next category is beta blockers. Beta adrenergic blocking agents, example is propranolol, metoprolol, atenolol, etc. They act by inhibiting vasoconstriction. They will not allow vasoconstriction and hence there will be no vasoconstriction, leading to decreased demand of the oxygen. They appear to reduce myocardial oxygen consumption, resulting in a reduction in the heart rate, reduction in the blood pressure, and reduced myocardial contractility. The side effects of beta blockers include cardiac effects like worsening of the heart failure and bradycardia, and other side effects include constriction of airways, circulatory problems, impotency, hallucination, insomnia, and fatigue. These are the beta blockers. So initially, this is the mechanism of beta blockers. Initially, first is beta blockers directly have the activity on CNS sympathetic outflow and directly decrease in the blood pressure. Another way by which beta blockers helps in decreasing the preload and afterload and hence improving the myocardial condition in the angina pectoris is beta blockers decreases the renin release. Because there is less release of the renin, therefore conversion of angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2 will also be decreased, and hence there is decreased aldosterone, which will reduce the sodium and water reabsorption. This reduction in sodium and water reabsorption will eventually lead to decrease in the blood pressure, and decreased in the blood pressure will eventually cause decrease in the preload and afterload. Decreasing pre and afterload will lead to management of angina pectoris because the oxygen consumption will be controlled. Next is calcium channel blockers, third category of drugs which are used in angina pectoris. These calcium channel blockers are further classified into verapamil, nifedipine, and diltiazem. They dilate the arteries and lower the blood pressure, which decreases the force of contraction. This is the myocardial cell. Here the calcium channel blockers act on the calcium channel and they will not allow the influx of calcium. If there is no influx of calcium, then calcium calmodulin complex will not be able to form, and this inhibition of the calcium calmodulin complex will inhibit the phosphorylation of myosin and it will not allow the contraction of the muscle cell to occur. These are the comparative properties of calcium channel blockers between verapamil, nifedipine, and diltiazem. Here we can see that nifedipine has the maximum potency and they have no effect on the calcium recovery rate. These are the pharmacokinetic parameters of calcium channel blockers. Here the maximum bioavailability is seen in amlodipine, that is 60 to 65%. Next is potassium channel openers. Minoxidil and diazoxide are the two examples of potassium channel openers which were used earlier in the previous era in severe hypertension and hypertensive emergencies. The new potassium channel openers includes nicorandil and pinacidil, which were developed in 1990s. They activate the ATP sensitive potassium channels, and thereby it will cause hyperpolarization of the vascular smooth muscles. Like nitrates, it also acts as a nitric oxide donor and hence relaxes the blood vessels. Some of the other drugs are also used along with these four previously discussed categories. They include antiplatelet and anticoagulant medications, for example aspirin and heparin. Aspirin prevents the platelet activation and reduces the incidence of myocardial infarction and death with coronary artery disease. Similarly, heparin will prevent the formation of new blood clots, and hence it will not allow the vasoconstriction, or it will not allow the formation of clots in the blood vessels, and hence it will motivate the normal movement or normal flow of the blood through the blood vessels. Also vasodilators are used which will directly dilate the blood vessels. Example is hydralazine and minoxidil. And even with these other drugs, oxygen administration is used as an add-on therapy for the patients who are in a severe condition. It is initiated at the onset of the chest pain to increase the amount of oxygen which is delivered to the myocardium and hence to decrease the pain arising due to angina pectoris. Now there is something known as combination therapy. It depends on the patient's condition. Like for stable angina, nitrates are combined with beta blockers. For stable angina, when the above combination is not working, here we combine calcium channel blockers with the beta blockers. And for unstable angina, we combine nitrates with calcium channel blockers. All three together can also be given, that is nitrates, beta blockers and calcium channel blockers are given together when the combination of two drugs is not working in the patient. Here the nitrates will decrease the preload, calcium channel blockers will decrease the afterload, and beta blockers will decrease the heart rate and myocardial contraction. Hence this combination will give a better relief to the patients in severe conditions. There are some non-pharmacological interventions also along with the pharmacological drugs, that is smoking cessation, weight loss if the person is overweight, increase the level of exercise, cut down on fatty foods, eat food with more good cholesterol values and less bad cholesterol value, maintaining optimum blood pressure, consider method of contraceptive other than pills. So contraceptive pills are responsible for cardiovascular disorders as well. So we need to manage the contraception with other methods and not pills. This is all about the pharmacological and non-pharmacological management of angina pectoris. Thank you so much.